Hey there guys, Kelby here with my comic reviews for this week, and I got to read Miracleman #1. Now, it's not really #1, I'm gonna be honest with you right now. If you didn't know, this is actually reprints of the reemergence of Miracleman, I guess is what you can say. If you don't know anything about the character, which I wasn't too familiar with, I do know that a lot of people have touched this character in the past and made it their own, and at one point, this was considered to be probably the best superhero book ever made, next to Watchmen. Basically because Alan Moore also wrote that certain arc. It was around his Swamp Thing time. I think it was before that actually. But either way, it's always been heralded as like a very, very important comic book series within the grand scheme of things. And reading this first issue, which is just a reprint, but they're kind of putting it in a way to make you like understand where it's going. If you ever read Whatever Happened to the Man of Tomorrow, that's kind of how it feels, but like not so endy, like not so at the end of the story. It's like that same grand speeches about everything. It's not as dismal as Watchmen. I mean, it's depressing at certain points where it's like, oh, this guy went through stuff, but not too extreme. It basically just kind of gives you a little rundown of the first issue of what he wrote, kind of giving you a little backstory and how he got to where he is now. I know Marvel's probably planning to do some things with this character, so this is kind of like a little primer for everyone. And it's actually awesome. It's great. The artwork stands up to something that would come out recently. If not, looks better than most things that come out recently. And the writing is just amazing. It's really, really, really good. If a little long-winded, but it's still awesome to read. One thing that was really cool about this particular issue too is that there was a lot of like extra features in it. You know, the Marvels had this for a long time. They haven't been able to do anything with it. But there was a cool interview with the original creator, with Joe Quesada, and a lot of reprints of original stuff. And it's cool because this guy's essentially like a British Shazam. Like I don't want to use terms like that all that often. You do a lot, but in this case, it's kind of sensitive because he's not really like that. His powers are very similar to that, but he's like Superman and he's just all powerful and it's cosmic or it's atomic power, and it's indicative of like the 50s and how comics were written back then, where it was just kind of like, well, I like this guy and I like this guy, and I think a cool character could be made from that, which I mean, people still do that nowadays. But one of the first things to do it, and it was just if Alan Moore is considered like the Beatles of comic book writing, if he's considered that awesome, the John Lennon, Paul McCartney kind of duo of he just writes amazing stories and they're really awesome and everyone loves them. This is probably like the Miracleman before then. The reprints is like the Chuck Berry of comics, where it's what inspired the Beatles, what got them going and what got them to be so awesome. I mean, it doesn't look like it, and it didn't really read like it was an amazing, mind-blowing book, but it's the kind of book that inspired someone else to make something even more awesome. The kind of book, the kind of character stories that make it really, really cool, and like what a comic book should be. Like old Superman, old Batman, old, kind of campy, kind of weird, kind of crazy. It doesn't make sense, but it doesn't have to because it's a comic book. Because it's a comic book, it doesn't have to follow these rules of like, oh, well, this has to take, no. It doesn't have to do that. And Alan Moore does a cool job of updating that with the actual story. So just read it, just check it out. Look at everything, it's awesome. There's sketches and stuff like that, but really, really awesome. And I'm excited to see more of the old stuff and whatever they do next that's awesome and cool. So I'm gonna give this 5 out of 5 Nerd Skulls because we've never talked about it before and I liked it.